Across Australia, there's a growing feeling that the fair go is getting harder to find. This video isn't about doom or despair, it's about clarity and possibility. For decades, the story we told ourselves was clear. If you worked hard, played by the rules, and stayed the course, you could build a good life. Buy a home, raise a family, retire with dignity. And all along the way, you'd be supported by a country that valued fairness, opportunity, and looking out for one another. But lately, that story feels shakier. House prices in cities like Sydney and Melbourne have soared beyond the reach of most first-time buyers. Wages haven't kept up with the cost of living. Climate change is hitting harder through droughts, bushfires, and floods, putting pressure on farmers, insurers, and communities. Regional towns feel left behind, struggling with fewer jobs, weaker services, and patchy infrastructure. And while the economy's headline numbers might look strong, low unemployment, solid growth, the reality on the ground is more complicated. Too many people are working multiple casual jobs to make ends meet. Renters face rising costs with little security. Essential services are stretched thin. And Indigenous Australians, despite incredible resilience and contributions, still face systemic economic disadvantage that can't be ignored. It's not that Australia has lost its strengths. We're still a country with enormous natural, cultural, and human resources. But the challenges we face now are testing what kind of nation we want to be. Because an economy isn't just about GDP or trade surpluses, it's about the everyday experience of the people living within it. It's about whether a young couple in Brisbane can afford their first home, whether a farmer in regional Victoria can survive another year of unpredictable weather, whether a nurse in Perth feels valued enough to stay in the profession. Right now, too many Australians feel like the gap between effort and reward is widening. We're going to explore 10 of the biggest challenges facing the Australian economy today. And more importantly, we'll talk about how to fix them, not just through government policy, but through cultural shifts, community action, and personal choices. Because while the challenges are real, so is the capacity for change. Australia's economic future doesn't have to be defined by division, insecurity, or short-term thinking. We have the resources, the skills, and the spirit to do better. The question is, will we choose to? Let's take a closer look. 1. The housing affordability crisis. For generations, owning a home was a cornerstone of the Australian dream. A quarter-acre block, a backyard for the kids, and a mortgage you could realistically pay off before retirement. Today, that dream feels out of reach for many. In Sydney and Melbourne, median house prices are now more than 10 times the average annual income. Even in smaller cities and regional areas, prices have surged as buyers spill out of capital cities in search of something affordable. Renting, once the stepping stone to ownership, has also become harder. Low vacancy rates drive rents higher, and tenants face stiff competition for even modest properties. The causes are layered. A combination of population growth, limited housing supply, favorable tax incentives for investors, and speculative buying has pushed demand well beyond what many can afford. Construction backlogs, rising material costs, and planning bottlenecks have slowed the delivery of new housing. The result? A generation of Australians feeling locked out. First home buyers watch prices climb faster than they can save. Key workers, nurses, teachers, tradies struggle to live near the communities they serve. Some families are spending more than half their income on housing, leaving little for savings or emergencies. And the emotional toll is real. Housing isn't just about shelter, it's about stability. Without it, everything else feels uncertain. So what's the fix? At the policy level, Australia needs to treat housing as more than just an investment vehicle. That means building more affordable and social housing, reforming planning laws to encourage density where infrastructure already exists, and rethinking tax policies like negative gearing that favor investors over owner-occupiers. We also need stronger renter protections, longer leases, limits on excessive rent increases, and clear standards for property maintenance. And culturally, we may need to shift our view of housing as a guaranteed pathway to wealth. A healthy housing market should be about meeting people's needs, not fueling speculative gains. Because if we don't address this now, the housing crisis will ripple through the rest of the economy, affecting workforce mobility, productivity, and the basic social contract that says hard work should earn you a secure place to call home. 2. Stagnant wages, rising costs. On paper, Australia has one of the highest minimum wages in the world. But for many households, that fact feels hollow when the weekly shop, the electricity bill, and the rent or mortgage payment keep climbing faster than their pay. For more than a decade, wage growth in Australia has been sluggish. Even in periods of strong economic growth, pay packets for most workers barely budged in real terms. And in the last few years, the problem has been compounded by high inflation, meaning that even when wages do rise, The gains are swallowed by the cost of living. This squeeze is being felt across the board. Families cut back on fresh food. Young people delay moving out of home. Retirees watch their savings erode more quickly than planned. And those on fixed or low incomes are hit hardest, often forced into difficult choices about essentials. Part of the problem lies in the structure of the labor market. The rise of casual and gig work means more people have inconsistent hours and no guarantee of steady income. Union membership, once a powerful force for lifting wages, has declined. Productivity gains in many sectors aren't being shared evenly, with corporate profits growing faster than pay. The emotional side of this is harder to measure but just as important. When people feel their effort isn't rewarded, trust in the system erodes. Ambition turns into cynicism. People stop believing that working harder will make a difference. So what's the way forward? At the national level, wage growth needs to be a deliberate policy goal, not an afterthought. That means supporting collective bargaining, enforcing fair pay in all sectors, and ensuring that productivity gains translate into better pay for workers, not just higher dividends for shareholders. Addressing the cost side is just as crucial. Lowering energy bills through investment in renewables, improving public transport to reduce commuting costs, and ensuring affordable childcare can all help ease the daily financial burden. And for individuals, building financial literacy and resilience, though not a replacement for systemic change, can help people make the most of what they earn and prepare for shocks. Because a healthy economy isn't just one that grows, it's one where the people powering that growth can actually feel the benefits in their everyday lives. 3. The growing cost of climate change. In Australia, climate change isn't an abstract debate, it's lived reality. Bushfires that burn with unprecedented intensity, floods that swallow towns, droughts that stretch on for years, crippling farms and water supplies. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent, more destructive, and more expensive. The economic cost is staggering. Disasters damage homes, businesses, and infrastructure. They disrupt supply chains, drive up insurance premiums, and force governments to spend billions on recovery efforts. Entire industries like agriculture, tourism, and fishing are at risk when weather patterns shift or ecosystems collapse. For farmers in regional Australia, climate change isn't just a political talking point, it's a daily uncertainty. Crops fail, livestock suffer. Water becomes scarce and expensive. Some are forced to walk away from land that's been in their family for generations. Coastal communities face another kind of threat: rising sea levels. Erosion, flooding, and storm surges are already impacting some towns, with future projections suggesting even greater displacement. And here's the hard truth: these impacts hit hardest in communities that are already vulnerable. The less financial cushion you have, the harder it is to recover from disaster. So what does fixing this look like? It means serious investment in climate resilience, building flood defenses, improving bushfire preparedness, upgrading infrastructure to withstand extreme conditions, and protecting critical water resources. It means accelerating the shift to renewable energy, solar, wind, hydro, not just for environmental reasons, but to reduce reliance on volatile global fuel markets and create new jobs in regional areas. It means supporting industries in transition. Coal and gas have been major parts of the Australian economy, but as global demand shifts, workers need pathways into new, sustainable jobs. And culturally, it means shifting from seeing climate action as a cost to seeing it as an investment, one that saves lives, protects communities, and creates long-term economic stability. Because the choice isn't between growth and action. The choice is between building a resilient economy now or paying a far higher price later. 4. The city-country divide. Australia is often imagined as a vast, open country, but in reality, most of the population clusters along the coastline, especially in major cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. The economic opportunities, infrastructure, and services are heavily concentrated there, while many regional and remote communities face a very different reality. In the cities, people may battle high housing costs and traffic congestion, but they have easier access to jobs, hospitals, schools, and public transport. In much of regional Australia, the challenges are about access itself: long drives to reach a GP, limited job prospects, unreliable internet, and patchy public transport that can leave people isolated. This divide shows up in health outcomes too. Life expectancy can be years lower in remote areas. Chronic illness rates are higher. Access to specialist care is often limited, meaning conditions go untreated for longer. Economic opportunity also varies dramatically. Industries like mining, farming, and tourism sustain many regional towns, but they can be vulnerable to global market shifts, environmental challenges, and seasonal work cycles. Younger people often move to the cities for education or better jobs, leaving aging populations behind and weakening the local economy further. Within this divide lies an even deeper inequality: the economic disadvantage faced by many Indigenous Australians living in remote communities, where barriers to housing, education, and employment are compounded by decades of systemic neglect. Bridging the gap isn't about making regional areas identical to cities. It's about ensuring fairness in opportunity and quality of life. That means serious investment in regional infrastructure, roads, rail, and airports that connect communities to larger markets. It means reliable, affordable broadband so remote workers and businesses can compete in the digital economy. It means funding for regional healthcare and education that doesn't treat them as lesser than urban services. It also means listening to regional voices. Too often, decisions about the bush are made in city offices without the lived insight of the people who actually call those places home. A strong Australia depends on strong regions. When the countryside is thriving, the whole nation benefits economically, socially, and culturally. 5. The skills shortage. Across Australia, employers and industries from healthcare to construction are saying the same thing. We can't find enough skilled workers. It's not just a minor inconvenience, it's a problem that slows projects, limits growth, and leaves essential services stretched thin. Hospitals struggle to fill nursing positions. Aged care facilities can't find enough staff. Construction projects stall for lack of qualified tradespeople. Technology companies can't recruit enough software engineers. Several factors feed into this shortage. Australia's aging population means more people are retiring, often taking decades of experience with them. Immigration, which has long helped fill workforce gaps, slowed dramatically during the pandemic and is still recovering. And in many trades and technical fields, there simply aren't enough young people entering to replace those who leave. Education and training systems have struggled to keep pace with the economy's needs. Vocational training funding has fluctuated, and TAFE campuses in some regions have closed or reduced course offerings. Meanwhile, the focus on university pathways has sometimes overshadowed the value of apprenticeships and technical qualifications, despite these leading to well-paying, stable careers. The result? Pressure builds on existing workers, burnout rises, and opportunities for economic growth are lost. Fixing the skills shortage requires a multi-pronged approach. First, invest consistently in vocational education and TAFE, ensuring courses are accessible, affordable, and aligned with industry needs. Second, strengthen partnerships between businesses and training providers so that skills learned in the classroom match the realities of the workplace. Third, create stronger incentives for workers to enter and stay in shortage areas, whether that's higher wages, relocation support, or improved working conditions. Finally, immigration policy needs to remain responsive, attracting skilled migrants while also ensuring that local workers have clear pathways into these roles. This isn't just about filling jobs, it's about keeping the economy moving and making sure essential services don't crumble under the weight of demand. Because a country can have all the resources, opportunities, and plans in the world, but without skilled people to bring them to life, nothing gets built. 6. Healthcare under pressure. Australia's healthcare system is often seen as one of the best in the world, blending public access through Medicare with a private system for those who choose it. For decades, it has been a source of national pride, a promise that quality care is available to everyone, regardless of income. But today that promise is under strain. Public hospitals are facing record demand, with long waiting lists for elective surgeries and specialist appointments. Emergency departments are overcrowded, and ambulances can take hours to respond in some areas. In regional and remote communities, shortages of doctors, nurses, and allied health professionals mean patients sometimes travel hundreds of kilometers for basic care. An aging population is adding to the pressure. Older Australians are living longer, but with more chronic conditions that require ongoing management. Aged care facilities already under scrutiny for understaffing and poor conditions are struggling to recruit and retain workers. At the same time, the cost of private health insurance continues to rise, making it harder for households to maintain cover. Many who drop it end up turning to the public system, adding even more demand. The challenges aren't only logistical, they're also about trust. Reports of overworked staff, underfunded services, and patients falling through the cracks erode public confidence in a system that's meant to be a safety net. So what can be done? Funding matters, but so does how it's spent. Investing in preventive healthcare nutrition programs, mental health services, and exercise initiatives can reduce the strain on hospitals by keeping people healthier for longer. Workforce support is essential. Better pay and conditions for nurses, carers, and allied health workers, incentives for doctors to work in rural areas, and clearer pathways for skilled migrants in healthcare to enter the workforce quickly. Technology can play a role too. Expanding telehealth can bridge gaps for remote communities, while better data systems can cut paperwork and help clinicians spend more time with patients. Ultimately, protecting Australia's healthcare system means protecting the values it was built on: fairness, access, and care. Without it, economic growth means little because what's the point of prosperity if you can't get help when you're sick? 7. Reliance on resource exports. Australia is often called the lucky country, and a big part of that luck has come from what lies beneath the soil and seabed: iron ore, coal, natural gas, gold, and other resources that the world has long been eager to buy. For decades, this resource wealth has fueled the economy. Mining booms have created jobs, filled government coffers, and funded infrastructure and public services. When global demand, especially from China, has been strong, Australia has prospered. But here's the risk. When your economy leans heavily on resource exports, you're vulnerable to forces you can't control. Global commodity prices rise and fall. Political tensions with trade partners can disrupt markets overnight. And as the world moves toward decarbonization, demand for fossil fuels like coal is expected to shrink. This dependency creates what economists call a two-speed economy. Mining regions surge during booms while other sectors lag. And when the boom slows, the pain is felt quickly and widely. It also limits diversification. When so much national attention and investment flows into one sector, other industries like advanced manufacturing, technology, and renewables can struggle to get the same support. The way forward isn't to abandon resources. They'll remain an important part of Australia's economy for years to come, but to use today's resource wealth to build tomorrow's industries. That means investing in value-adding industries that process and refine raw materials here, rather than simply shipping them overseas. It means expanding renewable energy production and becoming a global leader in clean technology. It means nurturing sectors like biotech, agritech, and education exports to reduce reliance on volatile commodity cycles. And it means ensuring that the wealth from resources benefits the whole country, not just a select few through fair taxation, sovereign wealth funds, and infrastructure investment that supports long-term growth. Because the real measure of luck isn't what you find in the ground, it's what you do with it. Next, we'll explore a challenge that's both modern and ancient in its roots: the economic disadvantage faced by Indigenous Australians, and why closing the gap is essential for the nation's future. 8. Closing the gap in economic opportunity. Australia's First Nations peoples have lived on this land for tens of thousands of years, building cultures, knowledge systems, and trade networks that are among the oldest in the world. Yet in the modern economy, many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities face persistent and systemic disadvantage. The Closing the Gap reports make the reality clear: lower employment rates, lower incomes, higher rates of poverty, and reduced access to housing, healthcare, and education compared to non-Indigenous Australians. These economic disparities are not the result of individual failings. They are the product of colonization, dispossession, and generations of policy decisions that excluded or marginalized Indigenous voices. For many remote Indigenous communities, job opportunities are scarce. Infrastructure is underdeveloped, housing is overcrowded, and basic services are harder to access. Even in urban areas, discrimination can limit employment prospects, while cultural obligations such as caring for extended family often go unrecognized in mainstream economic structures. Addressing this isn't just a matter of fairness, it's a matter of national strength. When any part of the population is locked out of opportunity, the whole country loses potential talent, leadership, and innovation. The path forward requires partnership, not paternalism. That means supporting Indigenous-led businesses and community enterprises, ensuring equitable access to education and training, and investing in housing, healthcare, and infrastructure in remote and regional communities. It also means embedding cultural understanding into workplaces, recognizing the value of Indigenous knowledge systems, especially in areas like land management, environmental stewardship, and sustainable resource use. Government programs must be designed with, not just for, Indigenous Australians, ensuring they reflect community priorities and strengths. Economic reconciliation isn't a side project, it's central to Australia's future. By removing barriers, amplifying Indigenous leadership, and recognizing the wealth of knowledge and skill in First Nations communities, we create a fairer, stronger, and more resilient country. 9. The digital divide. In cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, it's easy to take fast internet and constant connectivity for granted. But in many parts of Australia, especially rural, remote, and Indigenous communities, the reality is very different. Reliable, high-speed internet is now a basic requirement for participating in the modern economy. It's how businesses operate, how students learn, how patients access telehealth, and how people apply for jobs or government services. Yet large pockets of the country still have slow, patchy, or prohibitively expensive internet. This divide isn't just about geography, it's also about affordability and skills. Low-income households may struggle to maintain a home internet connection or buy updated devices. Older Australians or those who haven't had much exposure to technology may find it difficult to navigate online systems even as more services move entirely digital. The pandemic made the consequences of this gap painfully clear. Students without reliable access fell behind in online learning. Businesses without digital capabilities struggled to survive lockdowns. People in remote areas missed out on telehealth appointments. And while Australia's digital economy is growing through e-commerce, tech startups, and online services, the benefits aren't evenly distributed. The risk is that we create a two-tier society, one with full digital participation and opportunity, and one shut out of the fastest-growing parts of the economy. Fixing this means treating internet access like essential infrastructure, not a luxury. Expanding the NBN's reach and speed, investing in mobile coverage for remote areas, and keeping prices affordable are all critical steps. It also means investing in digital literacy, helping people of all ages build the confidence and skills to work, learn, and connect online. Community-based training programs, libraries, and schools can play a big role here, because the digital world is no longer optional. In a country as vast as Australia, it can be the bridge between isolation and opportunity. And if we leave people on the wrong side of that bridge, the economic gap will only widen. 10. The emotional toll of economic uncertainty. Not all economic challenges show up in bank statements or budget forecasts. Some are felt quietly in the background of everyday life, an undercurrent of stress, fatigue, and doubt about the future. In Australia, many people are carrying this weight. It's the young couple wondering if they'll ever afford a home, the casual worker checking their roster anxiously each week, the small business owner hoping the next interest rate decision doesn't push them over the edge. This uncertainty takes a toll. It erodes confidence, making people less likely to take risks, change jobs, or start businesses. It seeps into family life, causing tension and strain. It impacts mental health, contributing to anxiety, depression, and burnout. Australia's culture often celebrates resilience, just get on with it. But when the pressure becomes constant, resilience can slide into quiet exhaustion. And because money worries are still stigmatized, many suffer in silence. The emotional cost isn't just a personal burden, it's an economic one. A stressed population is less productive, less creative, and less engaged. Chronic uncertainty also weakens community trust. When people feel the system isn't working for them, they become more cynical about institutions, politics, and even one another. Addressing this means building more stability into the system. Secure jobs, affordable housing, predictable costs for essentials like energy and healthcare. It means strengthening the social safety net so that a single setback, job loss, illness, disaster doesn't lead to a financial freefall. It also means cultural change, making it normal to talk about financial struggles, valuing well-being alongside economic output, recognizing that people are more than their productivity, and that a healthy society needs time, space, and connection, not just growth. Because an economy's true measure isn't how fast it grows, but how it feels to live within it. And if Australians feel constantly under pressure, then even the strongest GDP figures can ring hollow. Which brings us to the final step tying all these threads together into a vision of what a stronger, fairer Australian economy could look like. Looking across these 10 challenges, a clear picture emerges. Australia's economy isn't broken beyond repair, but it's under pressure, and that pressure is shaping lives in ways that can't be ignored. We've seen how housing affordability, wage stagnation, climate impacts, the city-country divide, skills shortages, healthcare strain, resource dependence, the economic gap for Indigenous Australians, the digital divide, and the emotional toll of uncertainty are interconnected. None of these issues stands alone. They overlap, reinforce one another, and ultimately affect the same thing: the quality of life for the people who call this country home. The truth is, Australia has enormous advantages: a stable democracy, abundant natural resources, a skilled workforce, a rich and diverse culture. The question isn't whether we can meet these challenges, it's whether we will choose to. That choice means deciding what kind of values we want to build into our economy. Do we keep chasing short-term wins, or do we invest in long-term stability? Do we measure success only by growth, or also by well-being? Do we accept deep divides between regions, generations, and communities? Or do we insist on a fair go for all? Real change will require more than policy tweaks. It will take sustained commitment investing in housing that people can actually afford, building skills for the jobs of the future, ensuring healthcare and education are strong no matter your postcode, and confronting climate change not as a political argument but as an economic reality. It will also take something quieter but equally powerful: cultural change, choosing collaboration over cynicism, speaking openly about financial struggles so they're met with understanding, not shame, supporting local communities, valuing rest, creativity, and connection as much as productivity. An economy is not a machine, it's a living system, shaped every day by the decisions of governments, businesses, and individuals. And that means every Australian has a role to play in shaping where we go from here. We can choose an economy that works for more than just the lucky few. We can choose a future where the fair go isn't a fading slogan, but a lived reality, one where prosperity is measured not only by what we earn, but by the security, dignity, and opportunity we share. The challenges are big, but so is Australia's capacity to rise to them. And the first step is deciding together that we will.